All right, so there was a recent episode of the Piers Morgan show that I want to highlight because it shows how people like Piers Morgan and Dave Smith have it exactly backwards, but also how the pro-Israel crowd actually damages their argument by actually damages their case by advancing certain arguments. And I want to get into those. All right, let's get into it. All right, so this is a Piers Morgan show, and I really want to click around here and show the argument that he's making and where I think Natasha goes wrong.
When the Israeli government ordered 3 months ago a blockade of food and aid going into Gaza,
Yes.
that is a deliberate state-sponsored form of starving a population.
No, it is not, because
That's exactly why. That's why they look like they're starving. That's why they're risking death
Yes, you've asked me
to
on
get
here.
to scrabbling bits of food.
Forgive me, you've asked me on here to answer these questions.
I can challenge you.
And I just explained that blockade, which was imposed in order to prevent Hamas continuing to fuel its war machine by selling additional aid, that it was diverting, and we'll come on to the way that diversion is going to be prevented in the future, I hope. But the fact of the matter is that this blockade was instituted in the context of there being 5 to 6 months, maybe even 8 months of aid that was facilitated into the Gaza Strip. And throughout, if you'll allow me to finish this point, throughout the war, the volume of aid that Israel has facilitated into Gaza, and this has not been reported by the international media, but it is available, publicly available information published by COGAT, over 1,700,000 tons of aid which has been facilitated into the Gaza Strip, which is more than required for the civilian population. The study that was conducted.
Why are they so hungry then?
The study that was
Why are they so hungry?
May I finish this point? And I'll come on to answer
Why are they so hungry?
Well,
Why are they stampeding over each other,
We're not
risking
into-
death to get at scraps of food? I don't understand. If they're all so well nourished and Israel's behaved so impeccably properly in terms of supplying enough food for months on end, why do they all look like they're starving to death and are prepared to risk actually dying to get at food?
What you're basing your assessment on, I'm afraid.
It's what I'm seeing with my own eyes.
Which is Hamas propaganda, which you must accept as
No, it's actually footage. I'm watching news footage of thousands of people fighting with each other to get at food. Some of whom ended up dying. Some of whom ended up being shot. The IDF says it wasn't them and it was Hamas. We don't know who did it because, as you know, the Israeli government has banned all international journalists from being anywhere near this to verify what is actually happening.
Piers Morgan, you're not allowing me to answer a single question.
I am.
No,
And then when you say something that I don't agree with, I'm challenging
I'm sure
you.
I'm going to say a lot that you don't agree with, because unfortunately your assessment is being based on misinformation, like these false reports we've had today of Israel shooting 31 Palestinians attempting to get to food. That was run, and Ambassador Mike Huckabee has criticised this resoundingly in a statement just now. That was run in the context of
A
Hamas.
lot of
We have the
Palestinians.
drones-
You say it was Hamas. Hamas say it was the IDF. We, the international media, cannot verify this because Israel doesn't allow us in to do our job.
That's not why this reporting has been conducted on such a false basis. It's because nothing coming out of the Gaza Strip is able to be reported without Hamas control. And you, as part of the international media peers, will know this. It is
I also know that
a logical explanation for that. The IDF has not been, and this is a shift now, as you will have heard from Jonathan Conricus, has not been in control of any significant part of Gaza to be able to conduct that.
All right, so they have this discussion about the food, and Dave Smith eventually makes a very strong point that she's going to claim that Hamas stole all the food, and so there's plenty of food in Gaza, and he's going to claim, yeah, but if Hamas stole it and you're not letting more in, then you're essentially starving the population. And I think this is where the pro-Israel side often falls apart. Piers Morgan said to her this saying, well, if Israel's behaved impeccably, then why don't they have enough food? And this is why, I absolutely reject the premise that Israel is under any obligation to give the Palestinians food, electricity, water. There is this huge mistake that the entire premise of this argument comes up. The entire premise of their argument falls apart without this. There's this huge mistake that we almost surrender this position, and that is to believe that there are 3 people in this conflict: the Jews, Hamas, and the Palestinian civilians. But that is false. There are no Palestinian civilians. They're just the Palestinians. This complete ridiculous idea that we constantly deprive the Palestinians of agency. What are we going to do about we have to kill Hamas, but what are we going to do about those innocent Palestinian civilians? You mean the ones that ransacked Israel? You mean the ones that have had their government has been Hamas? You mean, now, who are the Palestinian people? People often say, well, the Palestinian people don't really exist. That's not true. They do exist. They are the people that were created at the Nabka. What's the Nabka? They both have the same founding day as the state of Israel. The Arabs were the ones who were in Mandate Palestine at the time of 1948 that ended up either as refugees or as part of the Jewish state. And that's what they refer to as a Nabka. And their entire identity is based on destroying the Jews who live in Israel. And Hamas is just an outgrowth of them. And Israel is not an obligation to support its enemies. And when Israel does try, then they just get this nonsense. Whoa, if Israel, why did they have enough food? It's not Israel's obligation to feed the people of Gaza. Israel's been under attack from the people of Gaza. Those people in Gaza stole their people. They kidnapped their citizens. Israel's under no obligation to feed them. This is all nonsense. This is just total nonsense. And once you get into this postulate of, well, maybe we should, are we giving them enough food? We don't have to give them any food. They have to get their own food. And if they don't want a war, and if they want to eat, then they shouldn't attack Israel. Let's go on.
conduct that analysis.
How do you know how many terrorists it's killing?
Because it is striking them with clear intelligence and targeting those strikes deliberately.
So it counts the bodies of the terrorists, but not the children.
No,
It kills in the process.
It counts, I'm sorry, this is perfectly logical.
It's actually not logical at all.
It counts.
To anyone watching this, they're thinking, what on earth are these Israelis saying? Firstly, Ambassador, now what you're saying is that you only count the terrorists that are killed. You don't count the children that are killed in the process.
So Piers Morgan is just being ridiculous over here. What she's saying is that Israel has credible intelligence when they go for a strike. Now, what she's not admitting to here is that Israel does not count who else got killed in that strike, because Israel doesn't have credible evidence who's around the terrorist. And so now they're going to have this whole discussion of, well, what's the ratio? Hamas said this is the ratio, and then the Hamas said it's more, Hamas said it's less. So let's watch how this ridiculous this conversation devolves.
In the process of killing the terrorists.
Which begs the question, no, I can provide you with some additional analysis.
Why?
If you'll allow me to answer the question, I'll provide you with some additional analysis, which is in relation to the casualty ratios that have been projected.
How do you know the ratios?
I'll explain. The casualty ratio throughout the first period of the war, phase 1, was generally put at between 1 to 1 and 1.5 to 1. I'll explain. Since then, in phase 2, because of a very different type of fighting that we're now seeing, there are some estimates that it may have gone up to 2 to 1.
How do you know?
Very simply, that Israel has been able to establish...
How do you know if you're not counting?
May I answer the question?
Well, you're not counting the civilians you're killing, so how do you know the ratio?
Well, if you're not going to allow me
to talk about logic. Let me get it. I want to bring Dave. I don't know.
You haven't,
Well, I have. I'm not speaking. You've got plenty of time here.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry. But it's my show. I'm going to get a Dave. Dave, I'm told I'm lacking logic here. Is there anything logical about what we're hearing about how they apparently know the exact ratio of terrorists they're killing to civilians, but they don't know how many civilians they're killing? How do you know the ratio?
Piers, it's just too ridiculous. And as you know, Piers, and look, I know that you've been, I think, very, as you've said before, I don't want to put you on either side of this debate, because I think actually people who are hardcore on either side of this debate probably see you as someone on the other side.
Yeah,
but I agree at this point. I do think it's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous for Israel to have to justify their campaign by the ratio that gets killed. What in the world has the ratio got to do with anything? Israel is allowed, and I want my position to be stated clearly and understood. Israel is morally acceptable for Israel to prosecute this war against the people of Gaza with callous disregard for human life. Israel did not ask for this war. Israel is not committing a genocide because it is not creating a situation to kill the Palestinians out of whole cloth. It is prosecuting a war. A ceasefire will come when the Palestinian people engage in a total surrender. People of Gaza attacked Israel, declared war on Israel, and tried to destroy Israel. And Israel is allowed to destroy them back unless they completely surrender and they throw down their weapons and they say we are no longer going to engage violently with you. And until that happens, why should Israel just live with a snake on their doorstep? What nonsense! And this is where Piers Morgan gets it completely wrong. Now I want to get into this business that he mentions about why he originally supported Israel.
Just to be clear again, I do not have an argument with Jewish people or with Israelis. I totally understand why after October the 7th, so many people in Israel felt so vulnerable, felt so angry, felt so distressed, so heartbroken by the devastating loss. 250-odd people kidnapped and taken hostage, including babies and Holocaust survivors. Over 1,200 people murdered, 7,000 wounded, by 3,000 terrorists breaking over a border to attack anyone they got their hands on. I don't need reminding of what happened that day. That is why I defended Israel's right to defend itself so staunchly. But I cannot defend what is happening now. What is happening now is militarily inexplicable to most people I've spoken to in the military. I have a lot in my family. Nobody understands what Israel's goal is here, other than flattening Gaza and kicking off. What Smotrich has said, it is to take over and clear out Gaza of all the Palestinians. That is genocide, isn't it? Unless you're a lawyer, you tell me.
Israel's war aims have been clear from the outset, which is the destruction of Hamas.
They haven't done that.
Of the hostages.
All right, so Piers makes an assertion like this, that he understood that after what happened on October 7th, Israel had the right to defend itself. But he can't understand what's happening now. Piers, you did not understand October 7th. I don't think Dave understood it either. Let me explain to you what happened on October 7th. The Jewish people, and this is a fact, I'm not one to cry about anti-Semitism, but the Jewish people have been uniquely set aside for genocide over and over again. The Jewish people have been the target of multiple genocides. And so when we get threatened with genocide, we take it very seriously. And so the strategy in Gaza until October 7th was containment. And I was never for the strategy, because eventually it wouldn't work. And it meant you just constantly have to deal with the population wants to kill you. And eventually they broke out. But what happened on October 7th was it shattered the belief that containment could work. So Israel has to create completely different completely different situation on the ground. It cannot go back to where it was before. And that's why this whole discussion of was it proportionate? It's not the point. It doesn't matter. Proportionality doesn't matter at all. Because the question is here, can Israel live with these people that are trying to kill it on its border? And if the answer is no, then it has to destroy their will to keep on fighting. There cannot be a ceasefire. These ceasefires are nonsense. Why should Israel, with the upper hand, have to have a ceasefire? There's no ceasefire. There's surrender. The Palestinians have to surrender their cause, or Israel must keep on fighting. And if that means driving the Palestinians out of Gaza in a war to be able to make that territory secure, then fine. And that is not a genocide, because they started the war. Kind of ridiculousness. People are like, That's similar to the Nazis. Did any Jews ever ransack Berlin, rape women, and burn their homes? No. This is nonsense.
And the IDF can do that.
They don't seem to have this concern about being blamed for slaughtering the children of Gaza. But, stop that. Right. Every time you get, it's either, oh, this is propaganda, this is Hamas propaganda, those kids weren't intentionally killed, all this stuff. But look, like we said at the beginning,
the idea that anybody would claim that Israel intentionally kills children is just totally ridiculous. And I've been I have friends in the IDF, and the comparison to Hamas and the IDF is silly. Sure, they've just had a very important exchange where Israel does not let enough journalists, and maybe they should. Maybe they should let more. Maybe they should let journalists in. The reason why they don't want to let more journalists in is because Hamas would use them as human shields. But that aside, Israel does not intentionally target people, and we are the Jewish people, and we do not intentionally target innocent people. And the whole and this is just a straight up libel. Oh, how can we trust Hamas? How can we trust Israel? Please, Israel is an open country. Is Gaza an open country? Please, this is just childish.
It doesn't meet the basic smell test, the basic human test. If you're telling me, as you said, Natasha, that Hamas has locked up all of the aid that's gotten in there, so who are you targeting when you don't let further aid in? It's the civilian population who's not getting it. Now you could sit here and say Israel isn't targeting them, meaning I blow up.
Yeah, that's Hamas's strategy, right? To starve its own population. So we constantly have to get food and they constantly steal it. And that's Israel's obligation? You foolish man.
Building that I know has little children in it, but I'm claiming I'm targeting the bad guy. But you know that in effect, your action is going to, in effect, destroy the civilian population. I'm sorry, this is a distinction without a difference. I don't care.
It was not a distinction without a difference, because you are allowed to prosecute your war. Hamas, Gaza attacked us. If the parents of those Palestinians don't want their children killed, then they shouldn't attack and rape and bomb Israel.
About your appeal to international law. Look, I'm like Sandra Spooner on this issue of international law. I think either international law allows what Israel is doing to Gaza, or it's been powerless to stop it. So either way, it has not been effective enough. By the way, it does seem like it's the latter, not the former.
Yeah, Dave is right about this. International law is nonsense. Who's ever kept international law? Did Hamas keep international law? The whole idea of if two countries are fighting against each other, oh, we're not going to use this tactic because it's against international law. It's all nonsense. All right, I want to share one more exchange with you because it's very important.
Here is that you're not allowed to tell the truth. You're Israel's lawyer, and you got to defend them no matter what. Natasha, does Israel have nuclear weapons?
Sorry, I'm an independent
Does Israel have nuclear weapons?
Of the English bar.
Yes or no?
That's a good
I'm not
question.
instructed.
Yes or no?
I'm
yes
not
or no,
instructed.
Natasha? Do they have
Does
nuclear
Israel have
weapons?
nuclear weapons, Natasha?
Why do you think I would know any better than you, Piers?
So Israel has nukes. Yes, Dave, Israel does have nukes. And I don't know why. I understand why a lot of people deny it and why the Israeli government denies it. But Israel does have nukes. And let's talk about why Israel has nukes, Dave. Because Israel has been uniquely targeted for genocides. The Jewish people, back to back, have been a target of genocides. Now, I'm not one to cry about anti-Semitism, but the Jewish people take a threat of genocide very seriously. And they take a threat from the Palestinians and all their Arab neighbors very seriously. And the reason why they built nuclear weapons was as a hedge against that. And they vowed to never allow another Arab country, enemy country, to get nuclear weapons. Now you don't have to like that. But that is why Israel has nuclear weapons. Israel faces real threats of annihilation. Israel is not America running around trying to bomb Iraq and Afghanistan. Israel is not on these cowboy excursions playing insurgent math where they create new terrorists. No, the Palestinian population is sufficiently radicalized, and they're radicalized to destroy all the Jews in Israel. And that is the justification for having nukes, and that is justification for attacking Iran, and that is the justification for pushing the Palestinians as hard as we can until they surrender.
Let me just say, it's disqualifying the nation. You're playing a different game than me and Piers are. We are having
I'm playing the same game as you. Israel is justified to prosecute this war in the way it's prosecuting it. Israel has a right to kill as many Palestinians who are armed against it, and it doesn't have to take any pains to protect civilian life. As it happens, it does. It takes more pains than any other army in the world. It could conquer the entire Gaza justifiably. And this whole nonsense of, well, what's proportional? It's all nonsense. This is all nonsense. And the same thing these crybabies are going to talk about what Israel's doing in Iran. Iran has threatened to annihilate Israel. The people in their country have agency. If they don't want their country being bombed, they must choose a government that does not want to annihilate Israel. But if you say you're going to annihilate me, I have the right to come kill you. And that is a concept. There's a moral concept and a Jewish concept. And we do not subscribe to your nonsense. We do not commit suicide because the terrorists are holding their own children hostage. A ridiculous notion. And so Pierce and Dave, you both have it backwards, and so all right. And so I say to I say to my fellow supporters of Israel, we have to stop with this nonsense that Israel is under any obligation to protect the civilians of Gaza. It is up to the Palestinians to protect the civilians of Gaza. The Palestinians are Hamas. They started this war. They wanted this war. They got this war. And if they want to end this war, they have to surrender. All right, that'll do it for today.